Good evening from Czech Republic and good afternoon to Costa Rica, right?
Yes, that's right, Martin. I'm here in Costa Rica.
What have you been doing in Costa Rica just recently?
I've just completed a Rites of Passage leadership training here in Costa Rica, and it's very interesting to see that all over the world, more and more people are getting interested in how can we create rites of passage, not just for boys becoming young men and girls becoming young women, but we're realizing that people of all ages go through transition times in life, whether it's having a child or leaving their job or a new relationship or getting older. And all of these transition times are, in fact, a rite of passage. And the interesting thing is they can be managed well and be a really positive experience, or they can be very traumatic and difficult and create a wounding, which creates problems later on.
Mhm. My understanding is that through your career, you actually have been witnessing tens of thousands of people going through the rite of passage. If you take a look back, what do you recognize what people were actually seeking for while stepping into the rite of passage?
The big thing that I see that people are seeking is a transformation. People get to a stage in their lives, whatever age they are, and it doesn't just happen once, it happens multiple times. People get to a stage where they realize that things are not how they want them to be, that they want to change, that they're seeking something, that they want their life to be different. And they don't always know what it is that they want. Sometimes they do. But what they do know is that they are being called to a change. And rites of passage help people identify and go through that change in a healthy way.
Mhm. And while you have witnessing those people going through the rite of passage, seeking for something, have you also experienced that they have found what they search for, or actually the result was something a little bit different than the initial motivation?
Very often, I find that when people say they're wanting a change, what they think they want can actually turn out to be very different. So people might come and say, "Oh, I'm looking for a change in my professional career." But then they actually discover that the change they're looking for is much more personal. And really, rites of passage, the transformation we're helping people with is for them to get in touch with who they are, what's important to them, what's calling me from inside me, and what do I want to be doing in the next stage of my life.
While you were, let's say, listening the results of people who ended up with the rite of passage, with the ritual itself, I believe you have heard many of the things what they brought. But what would you say it was, let's say, behind the words? What were the feelings of the people which came out of the process actually?
Well, the thing about a rite of passage is that there's something challenging in it. And it may actually be a challenge that gets set for a person, but often as we get older, the challenge is in fact about acknowledging what's not working in our lives, what do we need to let go of, and what do we want to move towards. So, what I see time and time again is in a rite of passage, people go through a very challenging internal process. But when they can go through that and when they feel safe enough to go through that and supported to go through that, on the other side, they actually get in touch with what they're really looking for and they get in touch with who they are and what's important to them. And that is associated with a lot of joy and happiness because it's like they've broken through something and found and being able to move to a place that they really now want to be. So one of the things that I often see is people think they're looking for something. Like they might come and they might say, "I'm looking for a new job where I'm going to earn more money." And they want to go through a rite of passage to work out what's the job that they should do to get more money. And then in the process of going through the rite of passage, what they discover is it's not more money that they want, it's more freedom. It's more time with their family. It's to be more healthy. And that is actually very different from just, I want more money. And so I always love watching people go through rites of passage and getting in touch with what I call their deepest truth, the truth that comes from inside them, not from other people, not from society, not from their parents, not from their social structure, but actually comes from inside them. They're really from their spirit.
And I think in that place, it's not about the motivation, right? You just know that this is the true calling and you just follow it, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So when people do a rite of passage, one of the big things is to realize that the rite of passage doesn't finish when you pack your bag and leave and go back home. In fact, that's when the work just starts. That's what I always say. Because the rite of passage gives you the insight. It gives you the insight and the vision into where you want to be and the clarity around the vision. It gives you the recognition of what gifts are in you that you can bring into this next stage. But then there has to be the commitment and the follow through to actually do what it is we've realized we really want to be doing and what's most important to us. And that's why it's actually very important that there's support for this stage of what we call, the stage is called integration. It's when we integrate, we take what we've learned, what we've seen, and we bring it into our new stage in our lives. And the more we can support people and the more we can create the right structure to help them integrate, the better will be the long-term outcome. And this is very important to realize.
Mhm. I actually think that the end of this process or end of the rite of passage in the same moment is quite similar to end the therapy and similar in work. And you mentioned that the integration process is very important. What do you consider like the best way of integration, let's say?
Integration is the critical final part of a rite of passage. And it's also the part that's often not done well or even not done at all. And it can be quite difficult because when we have someone with us, we can be doing the work, but then they go home or they travel to another place. So I find the most successful is a combination of everything we can do to make sure that the person who's been through the rite of passage has as many tools as possible, that their family, who they're going back to, their partners, their community, know about that they've been through something and also can support them. Because if they go back to a family or community who knows nothing about this change that they've been through and then sort of wants them to be how they were before, that's not going to work well. So there's the individual responsibility, the communication with their family and their community, and also if we can set up an ongoing sort of relationship for a period of time between the person who's been through the rite of passage and the other people who were there, so that community that they built on the rite of passage, as well as whoever is running the rite of passage themselves, to find different ways through emails or tasks or even video calls for a period of time to keep checking in on that person. The more we can do, the greater the chance of success ongoing.
Retrospectively, what is your feeling about the influence of rite of passage to my community, family, and society at all?
So the framework that I use in a rite of passage is based on looking at what happened in traditional communities all over the world for thousands of years. And in those communities, a rite of passage was in fact a community event. The whole family would know that a person was going on a rite of passage. The community would be involved. They would be sent off. They would be welcomed home. And as well as that, multiple generations within the community would be going through a rite of passage at the same time. So everybody knew what was going on, and it was much easier to actually be able to support the person. And a healthy rite of passage is actually, they say it's regenerative for the community. It gives energy, it grows, it's healthy for the whole community. And this is one of our challenges in modern day communities, is to make sure that it's not just you who's getting updated and changed and growing, that as many levels of the community at once are also growing, and then that will support them in the best way. An example is, if I'm going through a rite of passage, ideally my partner is aware of that, and my partner would be going through, their own rite of passage at the same time. And if I'm a young person, my parents are also going through a rite of passage, and so that we're all being updated at the same time. I look at it like it's a staircase, and everybody in the community is moving up a step.
This is a case when the community is supportive, but I can leave a rite of passage while someone from my close family is not on the same page. No, he doesn't trust the process. What to do if the close relationships are not willing to support me?
What you're talking about, when the people who are back home and who are close to us are not aware of or even not supportive of the rite of passage that we're going through, is a big challenge and can be a real problem. And sometimes people come back from a rite of passage and they find it very hard to communicate with people who haven't been, because they feel like those people no longer know them and can't actually connect and relate to where they are now. So we try and do everything we can to encourage the person on the rite of passage to find ways to communicate with their families, with their communities, even before they go on the rite of passage, just so people know that they're going to go and do this thing. And we may get them to write some letter or create some communication at the end of the rite of passage, and to support them to be able to communicate well with those people at the end of the rite of passage. Because if that's not done, it can create a real sort of break in the community. I know that when I was 18, I went overseas for a year. That was a big rite of passage for me. And when I came back, no one really knew about it, and people weren't really even interested in it. And that was a big problem for me. And I found I no longer fitted into that community where I had been up until then in my life. And all I wanted to do was go away again. And I did. And actually, in the end, I ended up going away and moving away from where I grew up and not coming back again. And that's not how it's supposed to be. What's supposed to happen in a rite of passage is we're supposed to go away, learn, change, update, transform, however you want to express it, gain new gifts and knowledge, and then bring that back and share it with our community. And when we come back in our community, our families don't recognize us, and we no longer feel comfortable and safe within our relationships. Unfortunately, a lot of people will then either go back to where they were before, which is a problem in itself, because we've seen something and we've been something, and now we're pushed back to where we were before. Or the other danger is people want to leave and no longer feel like it's the right place for them to be. And we don't want either of those things.
Do you actually recognize a big and small topics or rite of passage, or it doesn't matter and all is the same? Because I know you do it for men who became from young boys to young adults. And we have also mentioned in the beginning that there is many occasions for such a kind of a transition. But after your experience, do you really feel it like there are big and small topics, or it's all the same for you?
We will have in our lives, every person will have multiple experiences which are transition times. Some of them are more significant than others. So if I'm playing sport, for example, let's say I'm playing soccer, and the first time I get chosen for the team, that's a rite of passage. I'm in the team and I'm playing for the team and I'm part of the team, where before I wasn't. It's definitely a rite of passage, but it's not as big as when I'm born. It's not as big as when I go through puberty. It's not as big as when I get married, or when I have a child, or when I, die. So, that there are many transitions, and all of these transitions can be marked well. let's say I get chosen for the soccer team or the football team, yes, that's a beautiful rite of passage, and hopefully my family comes along and watches, and there's a celebration, and there's, the recognition of the hard work I've done. That's important. Or it can be done badly and no one cares and no one's interested, and I just go there myself, play, come home, and no one knows about it, and that can be disappointing because I don't have anyone to share it with. And the same with all these other events in our lives. I know people who have become parents, and it's the most joyous, beautiful experience of their lives. And I've seen other people become parents, and it's incredibly difficult and incredibly stressful, and they don't feel supported, and the man still wants life to be like before he became a parent, and he wants to go out partying and, doing all those things, and the mother is, really struggling and lost and doesn't have support. So for me, whether they're big or little, the aim is to have all of these important times well supported. I think, unfortunately, we have lost an awareness of the importance of rites of passage at major and minor transition times in our lives. And in my experience, I've seen a lot too often that these transitions are not handled well. And it may be at a small rite of passage time or a big rite of passage time, but when they're not handled well, we don't get all the benefits that we could be getting from the transition through this time in our lives.
And what makes you actually passionate about your work? And it's kind of the life work already, right?
What makes me passionate about rites of passage, which I've now been working with for nearly 35 years, and it's been the big thing in my life, is that I see they create healthy transformations for people that support them to move from one stage in life to the next stage in life, and actually help those people bring out their own gifts and help them to find peace and help them to find purpose and help them to find their place in the community, and helps to actually, I believe, rites of passage help to set up a healthy social structure within a community. And I believe that when we don't have rites of passage, or we don't have healthy rites of passage, which is what I see so often, I see that people become isolated. People's values are based on what they see on social media rather than what's inside them. People become lost, families break down, communities break down. And I actually believe that a lot of the major social issues we're seeing in people, and a lot of the environmental issues we're seeing around the world, and a lot of the poor leadership that we're seeing in the world, is because we have people who have not been through healthy rites of passage, and they're functioning more from their place of trauma than from their place of true spirit and heart.
What can I do in my common life to somehow integrate the basic framework of the rite of passage to my daily life?
My whole vision, and the vision of the Rites of Passage Institute, is to make rites of passage, healthy rites of passage, mainstream again, to make them available for people of all ages at any time in their life. And that's why I spend so much of my time training people in Australia and around the world about a rite of passage. But we also know not everybody can come to our trainings. So we've actually now developed an online rites of passage leadership training, so that people who are interested can do the online course, and they can learn the basic framework of a rite of passage and how to design a rite of passage, and then they can create their own program in their own way, in their own community.
I know that in I think June 26th you are having a course in Czech Republic, right? Would you like to say something shortly about that?
I'm really excited to be coming back to the Czech Republic to run another 3-day Rites of Passage leadership training in the last weekend of June 2026. Every time I have been to the Czech Republic, it's been incredibly special. I have great friends there now, and I love the people in the Czech Republic. and we had a beautiful training there last year. And so I'm very excited through Zdenek Weber to be coming back in June, and I hope to see as many people as possible on our Rites of Passage leadership training, which will teach people about the framework of a rite of passage and give them the skills to be able to design a rite of passage to create for themselves, for their families, for their community, or in their place of work.
And it's very interesting experience, what I can say from my perspective from last year, actually. Arne, maybe just one last question. I know that you have mentioned that it's already 30 years you have started this work. What is first thought which came to your mind as really the most exciting experience you had from past 30 years? And I know it's not easy to select one, but the first one which just pop up in your mind.
The most exciting things for me from the last 30 years of doing the Rites of Passage work in Australia, around the world, is how many emails and messages I receive from people who tell me how it's changed their lives, how it's changed the lives of their children, how it's changed their families, how it's really made a difference in their lives. And sometimes I get these messages 5, 10, 15 years after they've been through the rite of passage. So that's what I really love, seeing the beautiful impact that this has in people's lives.
This is not a part of a marketing of the event you are about to do, but really it's also my experience that once I understand the framework of the process itself, I can really see a lot of phases in my life which are going naturally, and I can see the phases which are in those events naturally also. And sometimes I just know, hey, just a little bit more of integration because it should be a part of the story.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right, Arne. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your days in Costa Rica and safe traveling wherever it will be. I'm happy you found the time for myself, and just thanks a lot, and maybe see you in June.
My pleasure. Thanks, Martin, and good luck with the program in September. Let me know how you go with all of this.
Thank you as well. Goodbye.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully next June as well.
Hopefully, yeah. Thank you.
Bye.